Hi everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and I want to show you this absolutely adorable card. Now this was inspired by a very creative and extremely talented friend of mine, Tina Wardell. She made a card very similar to this. If you haven't checked her out, you should. I believe it's Tina's Crafty Ink Spot. I could be wrong, but it's pretty close. Now when she did her cards, when she did two cards like this, she actually used the designer series paper. So I want to go ahead and show you a couple things about this, and then I'll talk to you about the card. So there is a brand new suite in the holiday catalog. Absolutely adorable. It's just too cute. I love gnomes. I love this. So there are lots of different things that you can do with these gnomes. You can definitely stamp it, color it with your Stampin' Right markers, which is kind of what I did. Not Stampin' Right markers, Stampin' blends, because they blend better. But I took hers a step farther. So you can see this one was done with blends. It is absolutely adorably cute. I love all the little extra stuff here. Speaking of, there's a whole nother, and I'm pretty sure this is probably what it is, but there is Snowfall Accents Puff Paint. So you could use that to make a little trail if you wanted to. There's lots of little guys on here, and I'm going to show you. Guys and gals, I should say, not just guys. But they have these adorable little mushroom houses. There's different mushrooms. It's also a very wintry kind of paper, but this is a non-wintry card, so this is another great way to use it. You could cut out some of these little scenes if you wanted to, maybe do a scrapbook page. There's adorable Christmas trees. You have these cute little reindeer. You have the foxes, bunnies, birds, some gnomes and houses, and I'll show you, there's two more here that are really the important ones. So you could also get away with die cutting these gnomes, because there are different dies that you can use for pretty much all of these. Okay, so you have the little mushroom house. Excuse me, you have dies for all of the gnomes. And there's all kinds. You could build your own gnome, their little noses and everything's mushrooms. Really, really cute. So you could definitely make a lot of stuff with this. Or if you wanted to take the easy route, just die cut and use it that way, which is another perfect way to do it. So for this today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a different version. If for some reason you want to be a little bit more creative and maybe you ran out of mushroom houses or you just wanted to make your own. So this one is definitely a Stampin' blend version, because you see it doesn't have the dots like these. So what I did is I kind of went ahead and made my own dots. So I'm going to show you what I did, and this one I'm going to actually do with a different color, because I did one in Sweet Sorbet, almost called it Melon Mambo. I did one with, so this was Sweet Sorbet. I did one on Tahitian Thai, but then I used the Starry Sky and the Orchid Oasis to color that one in. So definitely different gnomes. I kept the gnomes the same, but I just did the mushroom houses different. So I thought we could do a green version. Also, one other thing to note, right now it is July, I believe it is the 5th, and we have celebration going on. So for every $50 you spend, you get to pick something free. So we have Hippo dies, Hippo stamp set. Oh, I got these tree ring dies. I can't wait to share this with you. But there's a paper. This one back here was one of my favorites. This is the other thing that I ordered, and I used part of this on a different card. But these are the tree lot dies. I'm going to just show you this super quickly. These actually coordinate with the Trees for Sale stamp set, which is in the regular part of the catalog. It's got all these. Look at this cute camper. And it's got all these little extra pieces that you can cut out and decorate it with. Super adorable. Absolutely love, love, love this. And then you have the lights that you can cut out. You can die cut, color them in, trees. Really fun. This one is going to last me forever. I am never, ever getting rid of this, because I think the camper is just freaking adorable. Okay, so this is $100, the dies though. So you would purchase two things, but they have given you lots of ideas. You could do gold. You could do a, I can't think what they call them right now, but the silver streamline, jet stream. I don't even know. Trailer. Really cool. The silver ones that everybody loves to have. Those are so popular, but lots of different stuff you could do with the trees. You could outline it with white so it looks like it's snow covered, but this is probably one of my favorite sets in here, so I'm probably going to be talking about it a lot, so I'll apologize ahead of time. But anyway, you could save yourself some time and use the DSP if you wanted to, or you could do it this way. So I'm just going to show you the basic card design. Now I do have lots of colors because I already did this for some, And this is actually going to be for one of my classes that is coming up. So I have a parakeet party. Is that parakeet party? Looks a little darker. Yep, parakeet party. And I cut this out already with the mushroom. Now, what I'm going to do, and I probably should have done this ahead of time because that would have been the smart thing to do, but we're just going to wing it, is I'm going to stamp this. And I'm going to stamp it in parakeet party so it's tone on tone. Now, the reason I say you should have done this ahead of time is because it's kind of hard, just a little bit, to line this up exactly, but we're just going to do our best. So, you know, that's how we roll here. We wing it. So I'm going to stamp this in parakeet party. And the reason I'm stamping it in that is so I can kind of blend with having a little bit of detail, but it blends in pretty well. So I'm just going to do my best to line this up. Okay. Not so bad, really. I could probably trim this little outline off, but I'm going to give that just a second to dry. In the meantime, we can do the gnome. I do have some pieces die cut here already, and this is a gnome that I already did. So what I ended up doing was I cut this out with, the hat is with parakeet. I'm sorry, not parakeet, Tahitian Tide. And then I used my blender brush and I added some Starry Sky. I added even a little patch because I thought this was really cute, just using my Stampin' Right marker. It has a petal pink nose, a white beard, and then the feet are actually in Granny Apple Green. And what you can do is you can either rub a little bit of ink on the feet, or the other thing you could do, and this was just kind of like a little bit willy-nilly, I used the Stampin' Right, the writing end, and I kind of just traced those little crosses on his feet there, and then I used the brush tip end and kind of just added just a little bit of shading to the bottom, not a lot. And you probably would want to do this so you don't goober it up like I sometimes do before you connect the beard, but he's just put on there with glue, liquid glue, because that way you can adjust it if you need to. Now, one other thing I like to do is if you cut out, and you only really need to do the cap and the feet, but you can cut that out with the foam adhesive, our Stampin' foam, stick it to the back, and then he will be elevated as well. So I did that for one of the cards. You can see for this one's elevated, and then this one is just flat. So it really just depends on what you want to do. And those are all my pieces. I'm going to scoot this over because this is pretty simple card, and I really want to show you how to color this in. Now, one other thing I want to tell you is I do have some markers here that are not current colors because I keep them all. I have light and dark Granny Apple Green, light and dark Parakeet Party, and then these are the ones that are retired. So if you don't have these, maybe or maybe not. Dark Call Me Clover, that's the only one. And then I have dark and light Shaded Spruce, okay? So we're trying to kind of pick up some darker edges on this. So you can see this much more vividly on the blue versus the red. But what we're going to do is we're going to trace the outline of this with our darker color, and I'm going to go with dark Granny Apple Green. And I tend to like to use the point end when I'm starting. And what I'm doing is just picking a spot on here to kind of start. That's really the best way to do it. So pick a spot. You really want to just add in some shadows. I'm definitely going to trim this off. Kind of outlining the whole thing. Just like so. And I know this looks very rudimentary, but once we get into it a little bit more, it'll make more sense. Same thing on the bottom, and then I'm going to go just around the edge here. Okay, then I'm going to take my lighter Granny Apple brush tip. This one might need to be replaced. And I'm just going to kind of bring in a little bit of the color spread. So I'm just kind of trying to bring in some color, I guess more shading than color necessarily, but we are going to use these again, so just bear with me. It takes a little bit of time to work with this. You might need to kind of practice with one before you go full-fledged. So there's that. Then I'm going to grab my dark, I'm going to make sure this is dark, yep, Parakeet Party. So same thing, brush tip end, and I'm just kind of going over the same spot. And now I'm going to try to add a little bit more detail. So So I'm just kind of trying to add in a little bit of wisping. I'm actually going to switch over to the other side. I'm going to do the bullet tip. And I'm kind of also in this point making my own line. So it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what is there. I'm guessing that kind of for me, this is just like an idea. Trace the door. Okay, so I also brought in these other colors just in case I needed something else to blend it with. So I just have light parakeet. Again, we're just kind of adding layers of color. And this almost ends up looking like a no-line colored image, which you haven't done that for a while. I really need to do another one of those. Those are really fun to do. Same thing again, just kind of going over it. Now, I'm not really doing the windows because I want to add them in. I'm going to go over here just a little bit more with white gel pen, which I unfortunately don't think we currently carry, so you might have to grab that. All right, so I'm going to go with Call Me Clover, but same thing. I'm going to go with my bullet tip. Just add in just a little bit, couple spaces. Okay, and then I'm going to take my dark brush tip parakeet and just blend that out. Okay, come back in with this one. Same thing. I'm gonna just go around my door. And then I'm just kind of retracing those lines. Not really being, and I think I'm gonna be done with the dark for this one. Too specific with it. Kind of, again, more so going for shading. Okay, so I know you're can probably be thinking, you're like, this doesn't really look like much. When you see it in person though, it definitely has a different feel to it. I'm now on light Call Me Clover. And the reason I started with the green, so I would just kind of have a base of something to work with, okay? So I'm gonna go back one more time to my light parakeet party, and I'm gonna just finally just re-blend these just a little bit in the dark spaces. And then I'm gonna switch over here once more, and I'm gonna add in just some lined spots, just for some, I don't say dimension because it's not really, but it gives it a little bit more texture, I suppose. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I want to say I want to let this dry for a minute, but I don't really have a pre-one done because I wanted you to be able to see it kind of as it went along. So I'm going to take my white gel pen, just make sure it's not, this is just one that I have on Amazon, or I've gotten on Amazon, I should say. I'm just kind of eyeballing where I think the lights were, or the windows. I'm kind of trying to make my own window, so following the insides is really what I'm doing. Only thing you have to remember with the gel pen is that it does stay wet a little bit. And the other thing is sometimes a gel pen will bleed a little bit if it picks up any of the ink color. So you might have to give it a little bit of dry time if you wanted it to be really, really white and kind of come back after the fact. So now I'm just going to go in and add some circles. All varying sizes. If you feel like your pen is picking up some of the color, you could always draw off for a second. And they don't all have to be circles. You could have half circles, quarter, moons, little ones. But I feel like this really, and then just dots, that's the other thing I did. I feel like this really, even though maybe you might not be particularly happy with some of the blending, because again, remember this was blended onto a colored cardstock. So it is going to be different every time, especially depending on what you did. And I still want to do just a little trimming here. But it really makes it look very like that whimsy kind of look, which is adorable. I'm just adding in a little bit of highlighting. Okay, and I think that looks pretty good. So the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my paper snips and as carefully as I can. Now this one right here, and I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to try to get as close as I can, but this one right here has picked up a little bit of the green ink, so I may go back over that just a tiny bit. So I'm going to just follow the line of this, and I'm going to just trim right near the edge, because as I said before, I stamped after I die cut it, so it really wasn't precise. And just take off just a little bit of the bottom. So if you stamp and then die cut, you'll definitely get a nicer edge, but I think that looks really, really cute. And I'm gonna grab my pen one more time, and I'm gonna just add a little bit more white on top of this one. Now, if you wait for this to fully dry before you do this, you won't have this problem at all. So it's also, if you do that, if you're more patient, you'll definitely get a nicer white. Okay, so there we have our little green mushroom, which is adorably cute. I'm going to do one more thing down here at the bottom. I'm going to take my granny apple, and this is dark, and I just want to trim the bottom of this because I feel like it's, I think the way I trimmed it, it was a little wonky. That looks great. Just like that. Okay, so I didn't end up using the dark shaded spruce, but if you wanted to, that's a pretty good alternative there as well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just finish building our card, and this is fairly simple from here. It really just depends on what you want to do. Now I do have thick basic white, because this is definitely what you want to do when you do a white base card. The regular basic white just does not hold up. I don't even use it. I just order the thick because I don't like the basic white. I mean, it's great for insides if you wanted to use it and you're trying to go a cheaper route, but quite honestly, it's really, you might as well, when you like, what do they say, half a dozen one, six of the other. So really, whichever way you want to go. Now I do have a green blending brush that may or may not have a teeny bit of residual ink, but since I'm sticking with a green, I'm going with Parakeet Party. I'm not worried about it being dark or not. So I'm going to just pick up a little bit of ink, and I'm kind of just trying to decide where am I going to put my people. So I'm going to put a little bit of ink down here so we have a little land for this dude to hang on, and kind of go up here, a little figure eighting. I'm just trying to kind of omit that little white spot. So there's one. And then just to add just a little bit of color variance, I think I'm going to do some Pear Pizzazz. Before I did Granny Apple, Old Olive. Old Olive is just a teeny bit too dark. So same, since we're going green to green. Pear Pizzazz, not Pear Party. I'm going to add a little bit of dark shading on the bottom. Maybe just a tad over here. Not really going to see too much of it. So I'm going to keep this out in case I decide I want to add anything else. All right, so again, like I said, for my gnome, I used Tahitian Tide for this, white, Granny Apple Green, Petal Pink for the nose. So he's going to go here. We have our gnome. The only other thing we can add, and this really just depends on what you want to do, I did add some grass from some scraps that I had left over, and then I made a couple of mushrooms. So I'm going to show you those really quickly. I'm pretty sure I still have my little pink piece. Here we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you one other kind of cool thing. I'm not sure if this has any ink left in it, maybe just a smidge. So I'm going to do this with Calypso Coral, and I'm kind of just trying to find a random area. I'm going to add a little bit, and I'm kind of just, where I know it's going to fit. We'll go like that. Should be able to get 1, 2. I think I need one more. We'll go over there. So piece of just a petal pink scrap. Okay. Just add a little bit of ink with my blending brush. And then I'm going to grab, I have 2 mushrooms. So I'll put one here. That one. And then we have a longer stem and a shorter stem. Okay. And then I do want a grass. So that's the only other thing I'm going to die cut. And I feel like I have one little scrap piece here. And it's pretty nice that they give you the mushrooms. I kind of wish we had an extra grass, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. So I'm going to move these over to my magnetic platform. I'm just going to re-pop these over here. And sometimes you get these little buggers that just don't want to stay, so I use Post-it tape for that. Because since I went to the trouble of putting the pink down, I don't really want to lose them. And I really only need a little scrap. I'm just going to put one little grass piece here. Okay, so there's that. Pop this through. Die cut these, and we'll put the rest together. Slide these off. And the nice part, most of these things came out. All right, take this. All right, so here are my pieces. 1, 2, 3, perfect. And since I have this here, I'm gonna just add just a little tapping of ink to that. Nothing fancy. All right, so now we're gonna just put this on. And I typically just do this, like I said, either with liquid glue, or you could do it with adhesive sheets, foam adhesive sheets. If you don't want those, you can also get fun foam from a craft store. Honestly, it's pretty reasonable. Put that there. I'm going to put some glue on my gnome, and I think I'm going to pop up the mushrooms, the little tiny ones. Only other thing, and I did this every other time after the fact, so it really just kind of, I didn't put my sentiment on until after I'd stamped everything, which is kind of goofy, but you know, I kind of roll sideways sometimes. So I have my little grass piece, which I want to put a dimensional on that. And where are they? I swear it's funny because every time I make a video, it's like the dimensionals just move. I do have my reverse tweezers. Now, Stampin' Up! Does also carry, and I should have told you this ahead of time, they have a new pack that actually has the embossing buddy. Woo Woo is finally back after long being gone. And they have a reverse tweezer, and then there's a little tray to catch your embossing powder. And maybe you already have reverse tweezers, which if you do, just use the ones you have. But reverse tweezers are really great when you want to glue these little tiny things. So I'm just going to kind of give myself a little eyeball. I think I'm going to put the mushroom. I'll put the grass over here. We'll see. Let's see what that looks like. That. Put one here. And then I'm going to use my reverse tweezers. And I'm going to put a teeny bit of glue on these, which makes it really, really easy to pick up these little doodads if you want to place them somewhere specific. And same, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to try to put this, actually I probably should have picked this up on the top. Oops. but super easy to kind of pick up little stuff like that. I feel like this is a little bit willy-nilly where I almost want another little grass spot, but I don't have any. So maybe we're going to put a little bit here. And another thing you could do, oops, now that I'm looking at it, I kind of feel like this needed the grass, so maybe we'll end up changing that. But this does have 3 little dots, so I'm just going to use my little jelly roll white gel pen and just put a couple little dots in random spots. All right, and finally, the only other thing we really need, let me clean all these little guys up, is a greeting. I've already used the kindness and you know me, so I think I'm just going to do warm wishes, because warm wishes could really be for anything. You're just having a stinky day and you just need some warm wishes. You just need a little love. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to continue, and I've done this before in Starry Sky. So I just want to stamp this because I haven't stamped it yet. This is my first time using this stamp. I'm just going to do warm wishes. Adorable. And even if you wanted to, so I kind of feel like right over here we're still missing a little something. So I think I'm going to just take my parakeet party, and I'm just going to put a little bit of landing grass for this to be in. Now, 2 things I want to tell you. If I would have done that prior to inking this, I could have just taken my blending brush and blended that ink and it would have been nice, but I'm afraid I'm going to smudge it into the blue, so I'm going to leave it. So if that's the case of something you are thinking of doing, maybe put your little grass part in there and then add your sentiment after the fact, or do one, wait for it to dry, and then do the other. But I still think it turned out super adorably. Let me just pack all these things up because I have all these really sharp objects that I like to make sure I put the capsule in, because I'm always afraid they're going to poke me sometime when I'm not paying attention. So we have the Parakeet Party version, we have the Tahitian Tide version, and then we have the Sweet Sorbet version. I will say, I think between the two, this one I love. This one, we got the inking really well, where you can totally see the detail of the stamp a little bit better. This was tone on tone. This one was, no, this one, yes, was tone on tone, but it was darker. I probably could have gone with maybe Granny Apple Green or Old Olive, and it would have given a little bit more detail to it. So I guess it kind of depends on what you want to do. But worst case scenario, even if this isn't your thing, you can always do the ones that are already pre-done and just die cut them, and then it'll make it a little bit easier. So if you were to do that, you'd have this little house just like that on there instead. Or the other thing you could do is stamp it in black, and then you can color it with your Stampin' Blends, and it will look totally unique. I thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you'd like to get any of these supplies to make these cards or many other things, especially approaching the holiday card making season, you can shop in my online store 24/7, rachthestamper.stampinup.net. I will post the measurements and all the products used with a link that'll be in the description underneath of this video. So if you want to shop, you can go to my blog. It'll tell you all about the card, and then it'll also take you directly to my online store. And my blog, in case you're new, is rachthestamper.com. If you have any questions and you want to contact me regarding this card, other ideas you'd like to see made, or if you have a question about ordering or anything, you can always send me an email at rachthestamper@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you really enjoyed it, share it with a friend. And also, if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.